Exclusive contract with Feilu Novel Network Novel. Hong Kong film. Appointed, I became a business boss. Chu Tian was reborn in the parallel Hong Kong film world, initially becoming an undercover agent, and then entering the hands of Dong Xing's big brother Dami as a double flower red stick, becoming a short mule and beginning to provide information to the police. Chu Tian said, "I don't want to be a short mule. Being a short mule has no future. I want to become a good person and wear a suit and tie." Chu Tian finished speaking harshly and turned his gaze to Dong Xing. He wanted to quickly rise to power, and there was nothing faster than deceiving his master and destroying his ancestors. First, he killed his own big brother and then he became his own big brother. On this day, Chu Tian activated his personal system and accepted the three brothers who had no food to eat. From then on, evil became even more evil, and arrogance became even more arrogant. Camel. Chu Tian, what do you want to do? Do you still take me seriously? Crow. Chu Tian, your kid is even crazier than me. Chu Tian said, I just want to bully my teacher and destroy my ancestors. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1 Becoming an Undercover and Entering the East Star. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Half a year ago, Chu Tian raised his hand in front of the police badge and swore. I am 9786, willing to enter Dongxing and become an undercover agent. The sheriff nodded in satisfaction and shouted outside. Next. The crackling sound echoed throughout the mahjong parlor, filled with screams of winning money and screams of disastrous defeat. Chu Tian was holding a mixed brand cigarette in his mouth, in his 20s. He was wearing a casual outfit and had a very robust physique. His face was resolute and he looked extremely handsome. Brother Tian. Chu Tian walked through the hallway of the mahjong hall and scanned the entire hall with a very indifferent gaze. Around the corridor stood a man with dragon and tiger patterns on his body, exuding a flowing aura. When he saw Chu Tian, a respectful expression appeared on his face and he greeted him. Chu Tian nodded to the little brothers around him. I'll go to the office to handle some things. Please keep an eye on the venue and don't let me see anyone causing trouble. Upon hearing Chu Tian's words, the younger brothers quickly clenched their fists and luggage. Yes, Brother Tian. I walked to the deepest door in the hallway and pushed it open with my hand. This was an office, and the decoration inside was very rudimentary, with only a simple desk, a chair, and a miscellaneous cabinet for storing documents. The chandeliers hanging from the ceiling are somewhat old and occasionally flicker. Chu Tian entered his office and sat down on a chair. He kicked away the documents on his desk, stacked them on top, looked up at the ceiling above him, and the smoke of tobacco burning swirled out of his mouth. In Chu Tian's eyes, there was a sense of helplessness. How could this strange thing suddenly happen to me? Chu Tian was originally an ordinary young man of the 21st century. Although his parents passed away early, he also left behind a wealth of assets. With that asset, Chu Tian left society after finishing college. Although he had some obstacles, he also found a good job that could at least support himself. But one night, I went out to drink with my friends and accidentally drank too much. When I woke up, I found that I had traveled to a parallel world in Hong Kong and reincarnated into the same guy named Chu Tian. Coincidentally, the person named Chu Tian in this world is actually the double flower red stick under the command of Dongxing Big Brother. Looking at the benefits, at least at the beginning, I didn't reincarnate into a beggar and wander on the streets like the protagonists in those tragic novels. At least he's still a little boss. How many people can my subordinates manage? Ding, the system is merging with the host. Chu Tian took a puff of his cigarette and pressed it against the ashtray, then suddenly remembered a system beep in his mind. System. Upon hearing this voice, a smile appeared on Chu Tian's face. Although his life was not tragic now, it was not good either. Although Dami is considered a Big Brother level figure in Dong Xing, in this Hong Kong island world where Big Brothers are everywhere, Dami is nothing at all, let alone just a double flower red stick under his command, just a short mule. In such an era full of opportunities, Chu Tian naturally did not want to be a dwarf mule under someone else's command. Since he was reborn, he must live a wonderful life. Being a dwarf mule has no future, and if he wants to be a person, he must become a master. He must wear a suit and tie to become a hero of his generation, a tycoon of his time. Ding, congratulations to the host for activating the portable system. Reward system for beginners gift package. Powerful as an ox, enhance your charm once. Ding, do you want to activate the beginner gift pack? Chu Tian's lips curved into an excited smile and immediately shouted in his heart. Open. After the words fell, Chu Tian felt an electric current rushing straight into his body, without any pain, only a slight tingling sensation, which was fleeting. Ding. Congratulations to the host, successful enhancement. After hearing the prompt sound of successful system reinforcement, Chu Tian reached out his hands and couldn't help but pinch, without feeling how much his body had changed. Is that all? You won't be deceiving me in the system, will you? While roast in his heart, Chu Tian reached out his hand and took the cup on the table to have a sip of tea. But when Chu Tian picked up the teacup and instinctively grasped it with force. Click. Chu Tian was surprised to find that the ceramic tea cup had cracks in his hand at this moment. With a little more effort, Chu Tian heard a bang and the cup was crushed, and tea flowed out through his fingers. Upon seeing this scene, a surprised expression appeared on Chu Tian's face. He quickly took out a small mirror from the drawer of his desk. Chu Tian's appearance was already very handsome, but after undergoing a systematic transformation, his whole body began to emit an indescribable charm, as if it could capture the soul. Dong dong dong. A knocking sound at the door called Chu Tian back, who was immersed in joy. Come in. The door to the office opened, and a young man walked in from outside, thinking of Chu Tian bowing. Tian go, the boss wants you to go see him now. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 2. To rise to power, take down Big Brother first. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the Yuan Long area, it was working hours at this time, and countless young men and women wearing suits and ties were walking briskly on the streets. At the center of the street, there stands a night dance hall, but it is now daytime and there are no revelers in the hall. The entire dance hall appears very spacious, with only a bartender standing behind the counter, wiping a glass, preparing for night business. Chu Tian inserted one hand into his pocket, holding a cigarette burning fiercely in his mouth. He reached out and pushed open the door of the dance hall. The bartender nodded and made a gesture of invitation to the innermost door when he saw Chu Tian enter. Tian go, the boss is in the innermost private room. Upon hearing this, Chu Tian nodded to the bartender and stood outside the door. He spat out his cigarette and stomped it out with one foot. He then walked slowly to the innermost entrance of the dance hall and pushed it away. As soon as the door was opened, deafening music rang out, and neon lights flickered continuously in the private room. The strong smell of alcohol permeated the entire room. At this moment, Dami was half lying on the sofa with a leisurely expression on his face, holding a cigar in his mouth, burning brightly. His left hand was holding a tall cup and gently shaking it, while his right hand was holding a blonde beauty, constantly teasing. Ah Tian, come and sit down. Choose someone you like to drink with you. Chu Tian waved his hand and gently pushed away a woman who was approaching him. He walked over to the sofa and sat down. He then went to the nearby wine cabinet, took out a tall glass and a bottle of red wine, poured them over, and raised his glass towards to me. He then drank the red wine in one gulp. Boss, are you looking for me for anything? Dami chuckled and gently pushed the woman beside her to the side. She took out a stack of tickets from her arms and patted them on the table. She twisted her body twice and sat next to Chu Tian, patting his shoulder. I called you over today just to reward you, didn't I? You did a great job yesterday, killing half of that street thug. As Dami spoke, she picked up the stack of tickets from the table and stuffed them into Chu Tian's arms, laughing heartily. Come on, Tian, don't refuse this money from me. Take it quickly and treat yourself well. You are my double flower red stick, you can't be humble. After hearing Dami's words, Chu Tian reached out to take the stack of tickets, but an awkward smile appeared on his face. However, his heart was extremely unhappy. You said it's really beautiful, but the money I give each time is just a little bit, just around 10,000 yuan, not enough for the settlement fee of the people below me. Chu Tian couldn't help but coldly glance at Dami on the side, but his expression quickly faded away, and Dami on the side didn't notice either. Chu Tian put the 10,000 yuan into his arms, with a hypocritical smile on his face. He picked up the red wine at the table and personally filled Dami's already empty glass with wine. Thank you very much, big brother. At this moment, the system's prompt sound suddenly rang out in Chu Tian's mind. The system releases a random task. Put it on the following and take out Dami. Reward for completing the task. 100% loyalty of the three villains Tony and his three brothers. After the system's prompt sound fell, Chu Tian's eyes suddenly flickered with a bright light, and an excited smile was outlined at the corner of his mouth. Chu Tian would never be willing to be a short mule under Dami's command, let alone that he has already been displeased with Dami. If he wants to quickly rise to power, what is faster than getting rid of the boss and sitting in his position? This system task is like killing two birds with one stone. On the side, Dami saw the excited smile on Chu Tian's face and thought it was his reward that made him truly grateful. However, to his surprise, the venomous snake had already opened its fangs towards him. Push the cup to change the cup, and have a few glasses of red wine to drink. Chu Tian's face looked slightly flushed. He held up his glass and walked out of the nightclub, looking drunk. He greeted the two little brothers at the door. I'll go back first. The boss has had a few more drinks. Remember to keep an eye on the boss. After saying these words, Chu Tian walked with some unsteady steps towards the other side of the street. And just as he walked around the corner, the drunken expression on Chu Tian's face immediately disappeared, becoming incredibly calm. He ran quickly and turned back from the alley to the back door of the night dance hall. In advance, Chu Tian had already gone to the bathroom and opened the door behind the night dance hall and the window of the bathroom. He leapt over and flew up, flipping through the window and entering. After confirming that there was no one around, Chu Tian quietly walked into the bathroom compartment and hid. He's here to take care of Dami. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 3. Kill Dami. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dami looked up and poured all the red wine in the bottle into her stomach. Her face turned red and her steps were a bit shaky. She reached out and pushed open the door of the private room, walking towards the bathroom. Two little brothers closely followed him. You two keep watch outside for me. I don't want anyone to come in while I'm using the restroom, it's disturbing my mood. After greeting the two younger brothers, Dami walked into the bathroom with unsteady steps. Standing in front of the urinal, perhaps due to a large amount of alcohol numbing his nerves, the big cat didn't notice. At this moment, the door of the compartment behind him slowly opened, and a black figure walked out from inside. Woo! After finishing the convenience, Dami couldn't help but shiver. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a piece of fabric suddenly got stuck in his mouth, and Dami felt his neck being strangled by someone's hand. Dami instinctively wanted to struggle, but her whole body was unstable. She tilted backwards and Chu Tian behind her grabbed Dami, dragging her towards the compartment. Dami was horrified to find that no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't break free from the person's hands. You should know that even though alcohol has numbed Dami's nerves, his burly body is not a decoration, and his strength can be said to be ranked high within the club. But the person who imprisoned himself, his hands were like iron pliers, and even with all his strength, he couldn't shake a single bit. In Chu Tian's hands, Dami was like a chick being caught. No matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. Bang! Chu Tian grabbed Dami's neck and forcefully pressed him against the wall of the compartment, making a dull noise. Until then, Dami finally saw clearly who the person who had imprisoned him was, but when he saw Chu Tian's face, his eyes were full of disbelief. Dami really didn't expect that her double flower red stick, which she had raised with her own hands, would treat her so well. Moreover, Chu Tian's strength, which Dami had personally tried before, was definitely not as strong as it is now. It can even be said that even in this world, there is no one who can lift a strong man weighing nearly 160 pounds with one hand. At this moment, in Dami's eyes, Chu Tian was no longer the little brother following him, nodding and bowing, but a fierce tiger with its fangs exposed towards him. Under the influence of alcohol, Dami seemed to see a bloody mouth open towards her, and her sharp fangs shimmered with a hazy light, ready to tear herself into pieces at any time. What are you doing? Chu Tian, are you crazy? Help, help. Dami kept waving his hands and feet, wanting to shout out loud, but his mouth was blocked by cloth and he could only make a whimpering sound. Realizing that all of her actions were futile, Dami quickly cast a glance at Chu Tian, indicating that he would let go of herself. Chu Tian naturally wouldn't do this. His hand pinching Dami's neck put in more effort, and suddenly Dami's face became even more swollen and red. Due to lack of oxygen, even his own physiology couldn't control his brain. The pungent smell and yellow liquid flowed out from under his crotch. Dami is now in the hands of Chu Tian, the fish to be slaughtered, a trapped beast in a cage. Chu Tian looked at Dami with a cold expression in his eyes, without any hint of pity or even any emotional expression. Big brother, I'm sorry. Raise your fist high, and with a fierce punch, hit Dami's neck. At that moment, Dami felt as if her neck had been hit by a wild cow, her pupils contracting and she immediately breathed out, and her life quietly disappeared. After dealing with Dami again, Chu Tian threw him directly into the compartment. Looking at the frightened and incredulous expression on Dami's face before her death, Chu Tian had no expression on his face, and the change remained as calm as ever. I sorted out my suit, handled the scene, and calmly flipped out the window again, pacing away. After an hour had passed, the two little brothers standing at the door were already getting impatient. Hey, you said we've been waiting outside for an hour. The boss shouldn't have happened inside, right? Why haven't we come out yet? It's not like the boss slept to death in the bathroom after drinking too much, let's hurry inside and take a look. But when the two little brothers walked into the bathroom, their faces immediately turned pale, and they looked at Dami in front of them with disbelief on their faces. I saw Dami lying on the ground in the compartment like a puddle of mud, with tears and urine streaming down her face full of fear. There is a noticeable strangulation mark on the neck, and most importantly, on the left side of the neck, there is a deep dent. It is obvious that it was hit by some blunt object, and the shape looks like it was struck by a person's fist. This scene is simply shocking. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 4. Taking 3 Evil Men as Youngsters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dealing with Dami, Chu Tian returned to the mahjong parlor in Yuan Long and greeted the young men at the door before walking into the office. Soak a cup of precious tea, take out a cigarette from your pocket and light it, take a strong puff, and smoke rings spit out from Chu Tian's mouth, with a contented expression on your face, as if the person who just killed Dami was not yourself. Then, at this moment, the system's prompt sound rang in Chu Tian's mind. Congratulations to the host for completing the system release random task. If you commit the following offense, take down Dami. Reward for completing the task. 100% loyalty of the three villains Tony and his brothers. Seeing the task reward obtained, Chu Tian couldn't help but outline an excited smile at the corner of his mouth. The Tony brothers, also known as prominent figures in the original work, illegally crossed to Hong Kong Island and established the Moon South Gang to conquer the world. Among these three people, Tony is the strongest, followed by Hu. As the leader, Shaw's combat strength is not as strong as the two, but his social skills are excellent. It can be said that these three people are all first-class talents. If there is the loyalty of these three brothers, then for Chu Tian, it would be like adding wings like a tiger, allowing him to walk a smoother and more leisurely path to power. Chu Tian sucked out his cigarette and pressed it in the middle of the ashtray, when the door to his office was knocked. Dong dong dong. Chu Tian's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, calming the excitement in his heart for a moment, and he said to the door. Come on in. The door opened and a young man who was watching the scene walked in, bowing to Chu Tian. Tian Gu, 3 dirty ghosts have come outside and said they are applying for a job as a waiter. Do you think so? Upon hearing this, Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and said. Let those 3 people outside come in. After hearing Chu Tian's words, the younger brother immediately nodded, bowed down, and executed the order. Soon, the door to the office opened again. Chu Tian's face at this time was still calm. Looking up, there were 3 Tony brothers standing outside, just like what he saw in the film. But at this moment, the 3 brothers were dirty, their hair exploding like hedgehogs, their shoes filled with mud, their clothes all over their bodies were torn and tattered, with no intact parts, and water droplets dripping from their clothes. If it weren't for the robust muscles on their bodies, they would probably have been mistaken for beggars who had just been rescued from the sea. Chu Tian waved his hand to the 3 people outside and pointed to the prepared bench next to him, asking them to sit down. He looked up and down at the Tony brothers. Are you 3 coming to me to apply? The Tony brothers sat on the bench, completely ignoring everything else, stuffing a few apples on the table into their mouths. After all, the 3 of them had just arrived illegally, penniless, and have not even had a full meal until now. Boss Aja swallowed the food in his mouth and stood up to hug Chu Tian. Under the influence of the system, the 3 brothers of Tony were 100% loyal to Chu Tian, so it was impossible for them to hide any secrets. They directly told everything about themselves. This boss, to be honest, our 3 brothers just ran over from the Baisha refugee camp. We have also inquired about you, you are Dong Xing's double flower red stick, a character. So, our 3 brothers want to come and join you. No matter what you ask our 3 brothers to do, there's no problem. Just give us a full meal to eat. Chu Tian smiled and nodded at the words. No problem, if you're willing to hang out with me, I'm naturally happy. I'll take these 3 little brothers. Tell me, what do you all know? After hearing Chu Tian's words, Tony stood up and hugged Chu Tian. Brother Tian, the 3 of us don't know anything else, we only know how to fight. If Brother Tian wants the 3 of us to go out and fight, we won't refuse. Chu Tian didn't say much, just got up from the bench, took out a safe from under his desk, quickly rotated it, opened the safe, and took out 2 thick piles of tickets from inside, patting them on the table. I can keep you all, the 3 of you will follow me from now on. Take these 20,000 yuan, go have a good meal, change into a better outfit, and be a facade around me. You can't wear such a shabby outfit. The Tony brothers looked at the 20,000 yuan that Chu Tian had patted on the table and listened to what Chu Tian had just said. The 3 of them immediately stood up in unison, with excited expressions on their faces. In the eyes of the 3 brothers, if it weren't for Chu Tian taking him in, they might have starved to death on this Hong Kong island. They were grateful to Chu Tian in their hearts. "Thank you, Brother Tian, for taking us in. Our 3 brothers will not hesitate to go through fire and water for Brother Tian in the future. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data." Chapter 5. The Emperor of Grass Shoes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the afternoon, Chu Tian sat in the office smoking a cigarette with a relaxed and contented expression, and waves of smoke spewed out from his mouth, very happy. At this moment, the door to the office was suddenly pushed open, and a young man's face was flustered, his forehead filled with sweat, and he was panting heavily. He hurriedly rushed to Chu Tian's face, shouting loudly. "Brother Tian, things are not going well anymore. The boss was killed in the restroom of the dance hall." Upon hearing this young man's words, Chu Tian's heart was filled with a sneer. However, on his face, he still had to put on a look of panic, slammed the table, frowned, and shouted loudly. "What? The boss was actually killed, how could that be? Go and call the Tony brothers to me now, and I'll take them to the dance hall to have a look." Upon hearing this, the younger brother quickly nodded to Chu Tian and ran to call the Tony brothers over. At this point, the 3 Tony brothers had already changed into appropriate clothes, not as ragged as before, like a beggar just caught from the sea. Chu Tian looked at Tony's 3 brothers. "Follow me." In less than half an hour, Chu Tian took Tony and his 3 brothers to the night dance hall, walking towards the direction of the bathroom. At this moment, the outside of the bathroom was already full of people. The pretty little brother had a frightened expression and a worried expression, and there was a lot of discussion there. After all, there was a saying that the tree fell and the monkeys scattered. The boss was solved by someone, and their future direction is still unknown. Outside the bathroom stood groups of little brothers, but inside the bathroom there were only 3 people. There are 2 people who are the 2 little guards following Dami, and the other person, Chu Tian, is also familiar with him. It is the Emperor of Grass Shoes next to Dami, who specializes in helping Dami manage her finances. Chu Tian is specifically responsible for going out to fight, so Dami is much richer than Chu Tian. The Emperor was in his early 20s, similar to Chu Tian, with a very tall and straight figure of 1.8 meters high. Although he was somewhat immature in appearance compared with the old-timers in the Jianghu, his strong muscles were not bad at all, and he was wearing more expensive suits. At this time, his face was full of anger, and he constantly waved his fists to hit the 2 guards' faces. "How did these 2 of you protect Big Brother, who is cheating on your horses? Let Big Brother be right under your nose and be beaten to death by someone in this bathroom. Bringing 2 dogs over is better than the 2 of you, Zhua." The Emperor pressed the heads of these 2 little brothers into the toilet, and even added 2 feet. Watching the miserable appearance of those 2 little brothers, Chu Tian's cheeks couldn't help but twitch and shake his head as he stood outside the door. "Emperor, don't take any action now. What about the boss now?" At this moment, Chu Tian seemed to be possessed by an actor, his face full of panic. He pulled away the little brother at the door and led the Tony brothers towards the bathroom. When the Emperor saw Chu Tian walking into the bathroom, he suddenly flashed up to Chu Tian and grabbed his collar. At this moment, Chu Tian could clearly see Dami's extremely tragic death, with a strangulation mark on her neck. Her entire head was playing to the right at a strange angle, and there was also a deep dent on the left side of her neck, her face full of fear. The Emperor tugged at Chu Tian, his face filled with sadness and anger. His eyes had now turned blood red, and his teeth were gritting. He pointed to the body of Dami in the compartment and asked Chu Tianji. "Are you asking my big brother what's wrong? Don't you have eyes? You can see for yourself what Big Brother has become. You tell me quickly, Big Brother, how did it turn out like this? The younger brothers have all told me that the only thing Big Brother saw before he died was you." Seeing the Emperor spreading his anger towards him, Chu Tian gave him a cold glare from the depths of his eyes. However, his face showed a look of sadness and anger, and his eyes became slightly swollen and red. He suddenly slapped the hand that the emperor was holding onto his collar. You ask me, who am I going to ask? How did I know Big Brother would become like this? It's true that Big Brother saw me before he died, but after a few drinks with Big Brother, we went back to the mahjong parlor. You ask those two gatekeepers, they watched me leave in person. Bang! The emperor gritted his silver teeth tightly, and in order to vent his anger, he kicked the door of the sanitary compartment next to him, shouting angrily at the onlookers outside the door. Find it for me. Find the person who killed Big Brother for me. I will live to see people, die to see corpses, and I must avenge Big Brother. Listening to the angry cries of the emperor, Chu Tian tidied up his collar and drew a curve at the corner of his mouth in secret. If you can find it, then just go find it. At this moment, the sound of the system rang out again in Chu Tian's mind. The system releases a random task. Sit in the position of the big cat. Reward for completing the task. The first bucket of gold is 30 million Hong Kong dollars. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 6. Camel Convening Conference. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Dong Xing, Camel's Villa. This villa is built in a magnificent manner, with an open-air swimming pool as far as the eye can see. In the distance, there is also a courtyard where various precious flowers and plants are planted, lush and lush. In this huge villa, almost every 3 to 5 steps, there is a bodyguard dressed in black suits waiting. They wear sunglasses on their faces, have bulging waists, and their eyes occasionally look around. In the backyard of the villa, the camel was half lying on his rocking chair, holding a cigar in his mouth, burning fiercely. Cigarettes were spitting out from his mouth, enjoying the sunlight on his body, and his eyes narrowed into a slit. Boss. At this moment, a loud and familiar voice came to the camel's ears, and a burly man wearing a checkered shirt walked towards the camel. Sand Grasshopper, what's up with you coming to me in such a bustling manner? The camel saw the golden-haired tiger Sand Grasshopper and pressed the cigar in its mouth around the ashtray, looking relaxed and carefree. The Sand Grasshopper walked up to the camel in 2 steps and said with a slightly unpleasant expression. Boss, Dami was killed by someone. Now the people under Dami's hands are leaderless. After hearing the words of the Sand Grasshopper, the camel's relaxed and leisurely expression on its face disappeared immediately. Its eyebrows furrowed and it stood up from the rocking chair. What, Dami is dead? This is too sudden. You should hurry up and gather Wu-Hu and Uncle Ben for me now. This matter needs to be resolved in a meeting. Let's sit together and discuss. The grasshopper nodded at the camel, took out the phone in his hand, and called the other 4 people and uncle one by one. In less than half an hour. In the conference room at Tonko, all the senior figures of Dong Xing have already arrived. In the second seat, my uncle had a serious expression on his face, with a furrowed brow. He sat seriously in his seat and looked down. And in the lower position, sitting is the Eastern Star 5 Tigers. Ben Lehu, Lei Yaoyang sat in his seat, with a leisurely expression on his face and a cigar in his mouth, burning fiercely. Capturing the dragon and tiger, Situ Haonan was just like the flying thunder tiger Lei Yaoyang, although he didn't pay much attention to this meeting and was wiping his glasses there. Smiling Tiger, Wu Jiwei was just like his title, with a cheerful smile on his face. However, beneath this smile lay a sinister expression, his hands hanging on the table, playing with the teacups in a bored manner. Descending from the mountain tiger, the crow sat solemnly in his position like my uncle, but his eyes kept flickering over the others, his mouth not knowing what he was chewing. The golden-haired tiger and Sand Grasshopper sat on the chair, leaning backwards with one foot even stepping on the chair, their hands drooping all the way to the back, looking very arrogant and unrestrained. Lei Yaoyang finished smoking his cigarette and looked at the grasshopper beside him. He couldn't help but speak up and ask. I'm talking about sand grasshoppers, we're all very busy. What's so important about you calling us all over? His question is also what others are puzzled about. You will soon know. The grasshopper waved his hand to the crowd, and just as his words fell, the door to the room opened. The camel, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, slowly walked to the main seat and sat down. With a calm expression, he scanned the crowd below. I won't say much more nonsense. This time, I'm gathering you all because I just received news that Dami is dead. As soon as the camel spoke these words, except for the sand grasshopper, everyone below showed a hint of surprise on their faces, and then frowned slightly. In their view, this is a provocation against Dong Xing. Capturing the dragon and tiger, Situ Haonan slammed the table and stood up, his face filled with anger. He couldn't help but shout loudly. Chua, who dares to be so bold and take action against the people of Dong Xing? If I catch him, I will definitely swallow him alive. Upon hearing the news, Uncle Ben, who was sitting in the second seat, furrowed his brows and looked at the camel, his voice very low. Camel, have you caught the person who killed Dami? Who is he? The camel's face was gloomy as he scanned the crowd and shook his head. We haven't found the culprit yet, but the top priority now is to select someone to replace Dami. After all, we cannot keep Dami's position empty all the time. His territory and strength are second only to your 5 tigers, the leader of an area. This position must be taken by someone. This conference is also held to discuss this matter. Who do you think would be the best person to replace Dami? As soon as the camel spoke, Uncle Ben, who was sitting next to him, thought for a moment and then answered. It would be best for Dami to take over his position with his original hands, as they are also very familiar with Dami's industry. I remember there were 2 very suitable candidates under Dami's command, one was the Grass Shoes Emperor, and the other was the Double Flower Red Stick Chu Tian. Upon hearing this, the camel nodded to my uncle. Choose the leader between the 2 of them according to my uncle's instructions. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 7. Seizing the Big Brother's Position. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After deciding on the candidate to replace Dami, Camel, who was sitting on the main seat, lost some of his original worried expression and gestured to the little brother behind him. Go and call the Emperor and Chu Tian over. Yes, boss. The little brother standing behind received the camel's command, responded with a nod, and quickly walked out to execute the command. In less than half an hour, the Emperor and Chu Tian walked into the conference room one after another and saw all the big shots from Dong Xing present. The 2 of them greeted everyone present one by one. Boss, uncle. The Emperor and Chu Tian saw the great formation today, and both of them had an excited smile on their faces. Today, setting up such a large formation and calling the 2 of them here, it must be that Dami's seat has been vacant. It is certain that one must be selected to sit in this big brother's seat. The camel sitting on the main seat pulled out a cigar from its embrace and cut it open with a click. The little brother standing beside him had already prepared a match to light it, and a thick smoke ring spurted out of his mouth. He looked at the Emperor and Chu Tian and nodded to them. Your boss, Dami, has already passed away, but the people and territory under Dami's command cannot be left unattended. After our collective discussion, we have decided to choose one of you to replace Dami. I ask you, what would happen if you sat in the boss's seat? After hearing the camel's words, the Emperor smiled confidently and took a big step forward, shouting loudly at the top of his throat. Boss, I used to be in charge of money under Boss Dami, and I am most familiar with the industry under his command. If I were to sit in this boss's position, I would definitely manage my industry well, and it would definitely enable my brothers to have food, drink, and money to spend. After hearing the Emperor's words, the camel nodded at him, with a hint of appreciation in its eyes. To become a good boss, it is indeed necessary to first manage the industry under your command and take care of the younger brothers under your command, so as to have prestige and younger brothers willing to follow. After hearing the camel's admiration, the emperor's face became even more confident and his head slightly raised, as if the position of the leader had already been established in him. Then the camel looked at Chu Tian on the side, took a deep breath, took a cigar in his mouth, and puffed out cigarette rings one by one. He pressed the cigar against the ashtray and asked lightly. The emperor, as the leader, can manage money and take good care of his subordinates. Chu Tian, if you were the leader, what could you do? Chu Tian stepped out with a proud expression on his face, shouting loudly to everyone present. Boss, I used to be a double-flower red staff under the command of Big Me, and my skills were just enough to fight. If I were to sit in the boss's position, I would definitely be able to defend my current territory and fight for Dong Xing's territory. I will never lose face to Dong Xing. Upon hearing this, the camel couldn't help but nod to Chu Tian, with a look of admiration in its eyes that was no less than when it looked at the emperor. Indeed, if an old Dalian can't even fight, then don't think of sitting in this position. I don't have a boss who is even weaker than myself in terms of service. When the time comes, not only will I be rushing to fight for territory, but even my own industry may not be able to be protected. Chu Tian, I once heard from Dami that even the double-flower red stick under Dami's command didn't sit in this position for nothing. You two have your own strengths, both of you are materials that can sit in this position. After speaking these words, the camel looked at Uncle Ben and 5 tigers sitting below him. Who do you think is the best choice to replace Dami's position? As soon as the camel spoke these words, the crow sitting below collapsed and said with a smile. Isn't that easy? Let the two of them fight directly, and whoever wins will sit in this position. If you can't fight when you're the big brother, why should you be the big brother? Big brother doesn't look like big brother. As soon as the crow spoke these words, the emperor's face below suddenly became somewhat ugly. Although he had been practicing boxing on a daily basis, the emperor did not have absolute confidence and could defeat Chu Tian, the double-flower red stick, in a 1.on.1 situation. After hearing the crow's words, the camel nodded in agreement. In that case, let's follow the crow's meaning. After all, being tough in the martial arts world is very important. Go to the backyard, where there happens to be a boxing ring suitable for the two of them to compete. After the camel's words fell, Chu Tian's lips curved confidently and he took the first step away. The emperor's face changed and he gritted his teeth. In order to sit in the position of his elder brother, he gritted his head and quickly followed suit. In the arena of the backyard, Chu Tian and the emperor were now naked, revealing their muscular prowess. Below, Camel, Uncle Ben, and 5 tigers sit one by one to rule the game. Start. As the crow's words fell, the emperor took the lead and threw a pair of iron fists at Chu Tian, each fist mixed with the howling wind, incredibly fierce. If this falls on ordinary people, they may either die or become disabled. But Chu Tian allowed the emperor's fierce fists to fall on him, like an unshakable mountain, without retreating a step. The emperor punched Chu Tian several times, and there were already large drops of sweat on his forehead. His fists were slightly swollen and red, and he felt as if he had hit a rock with each punch, causing immense pain. Chu Tian watched as the emperor finished beating around, his face still showing a light and ethereal expression. He reached out to pat the non-existent dust on his shoulder. Have you finished playing? After the fight, it's my turn to take action. Bang! As the words fell, Chu Tian's fists were fast and terrifying, and he threw them directly at the emperor's door. There was no time to dodge at all. The emperor flew backwards and was punched by Chu Tian, causing his nose to tilt and blood to flow. His entire body was curled up like a skinned shrimp, kneeling on the ground, covering his face, and screaming incessantly. The outcome is clear. Ha! A whistle blew out from the crow's mouth below, eyes full of admiration, and nodded towards Chu Tian on stage. This kid is really good, he's quite capable of fighting. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 8. Taking over the night dance hall, nicknamed Mammoth. You are listening at novel full.audio. The outcome has been decided, let's make a final decision. Chu Tian glanced at the emperor lying on the ground, constantly howling, and an excited smile rose from the corner of his mouth, leaping directly from the arena. The camel sitting in the referee's seat saw Chu Tian's victory with admiration in its eyes. It nodded at him and walked up to Chu Tian, patting his shoulder. Okay. Since Chu Tian is so capable of playing, I believe with his just demonstrated strength, what he said in the meeting before is definitely not empty talk. Chu Tian nodded to the camel and the people below, his eyes full of confidence. Don't worry, boss. As the big brother, Dong Xing's territory will definitely expand. The camel nodded to Chu Tian with a smile. Very good, Chu Tian. From now on, you will be sitting in Dami's position and should serve the club well. Just as the camel finished speaking, suddenly something seemed to come to mind and looked at Chu Tian. By the way, you are already a big brother now. How could you wander the world without a decent nickname? After speaking, the camel looked up and down at Chu Tian and grinned. Since you are so capable of fighting and can even knock down the emperor with a single punch, it shows that you have great strength. So in the future, your nickname in the martial arts world will be called Mammoth. Upon hearing the nickname given to him by the camel, Chu Tian couldn't help but twitch his lips, but he didn't say much and nodded at the camel. Thank you very much, boss. After the camel gave Chu Tian a nickname, today's meeting was finally concluded successfully. Uncle Ben and 5 tigers both left one after another. As for the emperor lying on the arena, constantly wailing, he was only helped down by 2 younger brothers. However, as the emperor stepped down from the arena, he endured the pain on his face and raised his head. His face was full of unwillingness, and his eyes were full of malice, as if a venomous snake hidden in the dark, revealing its dense fangs, looked towards Chu Tian. Return to Yuanlang's mahjong parlor. At this point, Chu Tian had replaced Dami as the boss, and this matter was quickly notified. As soon as they returned to the mahjong parlor, all the little brothers standing at the door bowed and greeted Chu Tian. Boss. Chu Tian's face was calm and he nodded towards the younger brothers below. When the eldest brother was a facade, Chu Tian had already changed from his casual attire to a luxurious suit, with his hair meticulously combed and his leather shoes shining brightly under his feet. Having transformed from a short mule to a big brother, Chu Tian waved to his closest younger brother and said calmly, "Go and call the Tony brothers to my office." After giving orders, Chu Tian returned to his office, with an excited and natural smile on his face, which had originally been a calm expression. Sitting on the chair, he lifted his feet and placed them on the office desk, his hands drooping behind the chair. He took out a cigarette from his pocket, picked up the matchbox on the table, drew a match, and lit the cigarette. Cigarettes were spit out from Chu Tian's mouth one by one. After smoking a cigarette, the office door opened and Tony and his 3 brothers entered one after another, bowing to greet Chu Tian. "Boss, do you have any orders?" At this time, the Tony brothers had also learned of the news that Chu Tian had become the leader, and their names for Chu Tian had also changed. Chu Tian and Tony's 3 brothers nodded and pointed to the street outside the window. "I have already taken you to the night dance hall last time. Now, the 3 of you take your brothers under your hands to take over the night dance hall and take it over for me. Other industries can be slowed down for a while, but as a subordinate of Dami, this nightclub is the most profitable industry and must be taken over immediately without any mistakes." Chu Tian, once a subordinate of Dami, naturally knew that this nightclub could bring in daily profits that could be described as a daily struggle for gold. "And now that I have become the boss, I can't continue to stay in this chilly mahjong studio office. It's time to make a decent place for myself. Upon hearing this, the three Tony brothers responded to Chu Tian and immediately turned around to gather the younger brothers outside to carry out Chu Tian's orders. After instructing the Tony brothers, Chu Tian leisurely brewed a cup of fragrant tea for himself, and at that moment, the sound of the system rang in Chu Bai's mind. Congratulations to the host for completing the random task of system release. Sit in Dami's position. Task completion rewards. The first bucket of gold is 30 million Hong Kong dollars. After the sound of the system disappeared, Chu Tian's eyes flickered, and a mountain-like pile of banknotes appeared. These 30 million Hong Kong dollars didn't sound very impressive, but when they were really in front of him, they were extremely spectacular. Looking at the 30 million Hong Kong dollars in front of him, Chu Tian's face first showed a hint of surprise, but soon became somewhat worried. These 30 million Hong Kong dollars can't be kept in the office all the time, it seems like we need to make room. Just as Chu Tian was worried, the sound of the system rang out in his mind. Reminder, this system has a spatial system that can store various items. Upon hearing the system's words, Chu Tian's eyes lit up. In front of him, a button for the warehouse option appeared. Chu Tian pressed the button and waved his big hand towards the Hong Kong dollars in front of him. The piles of Hong Kong dollars piled up in front of him, as high as a small mountain, disappeared completely. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 9. Nepalese Army Naifahu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is no moonlight in the sky, and the night envelopes the world. But on the commercial streets of Yuen Long, the lights are dim, and the streets are constantly bustling with countless young men and women indulging at night. In the dark dance hall at the center of the commercial street, the air inside is filled with a strong smell of alcohol, and various rhythmic music is constantly playing. Countless men and women are singing and reveling there. But in the innermost room of the night dance hall, it was incredibly quiet. This used to be Dami's office, but now it belongs to Chu Tian. It has to be said that for her own office, Dami has really made a lot of money and the decoration is pretty good, but it's a bit outdated. Not the type that Chu Tian likes. Chu Tian sat on the sofa enjoying himself, with a cup of fragrant tea brewing in front of the table and a cigar in his mouth. He swallowed clouds and exhaled mist, his face full of contentment. At that moment, the door to the office opened and Aja walked in, his face furrowed with anger. Chu Tian saw the expression on Aja's face and shook his cigarette ash. What's wrong? Aja snorted coldly, his teeth creaking. Mammoth brother, that emperor is really too reckless. After you become the big brother, it's okay if he doesn't come to greet you. Recently, he has been talking to his younger brothers and making them ignore your orders. He even said that his emperor is not under your command, and you have no right to control him at all. He simply didn't take you seriously, Mammoth brother. Upon hearing this, Chu Tian furrowed his brows and drained his cigar in one gulp. He pressed it against the ashtray and turned it around, causing smoke to curl up from his mouth. At this moment, the sound of the system rang out in Chu Tian's mind. The system releases a random task. Clean the emperor. Reward for completing the task. Mastery of God-level firearms. After hearing the sound of the system, Chu Tian couldn't help but outline the corners of his mouth, with a smile and a cold gleam in his eyes. What you really want? Chu Tian nodded to Aja. Alright, I already know about this matter. You go out first, I will take care of it. Upon hearing this, Aja looked at Chu Tian and gritted his teeth, but in the end, he didn't say much. He bowed to Chu Tian and then turned around and left. After Aja left, Chu Tian took out a big phone from his pocket and quickly pressed a few numbers on it before dialing out. Hello, Ahu, come to my office now. On the other side of the phone, Ahu's deep voice rang out. Okay, Mammoth brother. In less than a quarter of an hour, the office door opened and Ahu, dressed in this suit and leather shoes, walked briskly to Chu Tian. "Mammoth brother, what are your instructions?" Chu Tian pointed to the sofa in front of him, indicating that who sat down, got up from behind his desk, and walked towards the shelf next to him. In this shelf, there are various collections of big cats. Chu Tian took out a Nepalese army knife from it and pulled it out of its scabbard. The bright white blade was like the fangs of a wild beast, shining with a cold light, as if it could take away a life with just a gentle touch. Chu Tian's hand brushed against the Nepalese army knife over here, feeling its sharpness. He couldn't help but nod and slapped the Nepalese army knife in front of Ahu, with a cold gleam in his eyes. "Ahu, I think you've heard about it too. The emperor has been very arrogant lately. After I took over Dami, he should have been my subordinate, but now he's speaking up and saying that I can't control him or his subordinates. I'm afraid he wants to start a new life. Ahu, I'll give you a task now to secretly solve the emperor's problem. Don't let anyone else know about this." After hearing Chu Tian's words, Ahu's face immediately turned extremely fierce, and his eyes were sharp, like a venomous snake searching for prey. He nodded to Chu Tian. "Mammoth brother, don't worry, I will definitely solve this matter beautifully." Although Ahu ranks second in strength among the Tony brothers, he is very sharp in his actions and will never show any mercy to the enemy. He is the most suitable candidate to assassinate the emperor. And now, the Tony brothers are 100% loyal to Chu Tian. Even if this matter fails, they will definitely not confess Chu Tian, which is the most reassuring thing for Chu Tian. Ahu took the Nepalese army knife that Chu Tian had patted on the table, put it into his sleeve, got up from the sofa, nodded at Chu Tian, turned around and left, ready to go hunting his prey. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data. Chapter 10. Cleaning the Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In Yuan Long, at the Night Butterfly Bar. Various dynamic music resounds here, and countless young men and women are singing and reveling in the bar, shaking their heads and brains with the continuous swaying of the music, as if they are crazy. In a private room, the emperor was dressed in suits and leather shoes, still wearing a ring in his hand, holding a cigarette between his fingers. He took a deep breath, and thick smoke curled up from his mouth. He looked like a big brother, with a sinister smile on the corner of his mouth, and looked at the two slightly dumbfounded little thugs beside him. "Starting from today, you two will follow me, and any questions will be on me. Being brothers is the way to share blessings and misfortunes." The two thugs heard the emperor's words and quickly nodded. "Thank you, big brother." The emperor waved his hand and pointed to the tall glass placed in front of him, which was filled with bright red wine. "You're welcome. Let's have a toast first. This small drink won't kill you." Upon hearing these words, two young thugs quickly picked up the glass in front of them, saluted the emperor, and drank it in one gulp. And the two little brothers sitting next to the emperor couldn't help but outline an excited smile at the corner of their mouths when they saw this scene, with a mocking glint in their eyes. About 40.5%. Then let's split the money again. The emperor once again spat out a mouthful of the smoke he had talked about, picked up the collapsed ticket on the table, and handed it to the younger brother. "Of course. You two each have one card." The little thug watching this scene on the side, his eyes shining brightly with a longing expression. The emperor smiled at the sight. "Big brother won't be unfair." As he spoke, he picked up two bills again and handed them to the two young thugs. The little thug saw the ticket coming towards him and quickly reached out his hands to take it. "Thank you, big brother. Come on, cheers." After dividing the money, the emperor once again picked up the wine glass and compared it to the two young thugs. Seeing this, the thugs quickly picked up the glass and drank the red wine. "We're almost reaching the top. It's time to split the money again." "Yeah." The two young men sitting on the other side saw this scene, and their smiles grew stronger in their eyes. They looked at the small thugs there as if they were looking at the walking banknotes. The emperor took a deep breath of his cigarette and looked at the two young thugs, continuing to say, "You don't need to be kind to them. One person, one horse. You're also handsome like me, and you're also stylish like me. By then, at least 3 or 2 more than them." After speaking these words, the emperor picked up the banknotes on the table and distributed them. "Now that the money has been divided, I have some goods that the people outside of me really like. Come on, Ahui, take these goods and take them with you hand in hand." The little brother beside him quickly twisted his hips upon hearing this and sat next to the two thugs. He picked up the fourth son on the table and gestured in front of them. "Come on, take them all, let's go outside. You guys, each person can sell at least 3,000 pills, and then you'll make a fortune." Watching Ah Hui take the fourth son and lead the two thugs to the dance hall outside, a cold smile appeared on his lips as he drank the red wine from his glass in one gulp, with a drunken blush on his face. "You wait here, I'll go get a hand." After the emperor finished speaking, he walked out of the private room with a slightly drunken pace. For some reason, he walked towards the back door of the bar and began to relieve himself in the alley behind him. But at this moment, a figure appeared deep in the alley. The figure was as elusive as a ghost, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, but with a ghost mask on his face. "Hey, who are you?" The alcohol I had just drunk had already begun to numb the emperor's head. I watched the masked man walking towards me, but I couldn't realize my danger. While hiccuping, I asked Ahu loudly. Under the mask, a cold smile appeared on Ahu's face, and he rushed to the emperor in 2 steps. In his sleeve, the Nepalese military knife given to him by Chu Tian suddenly slipped out, shining with a deep cold light. At this moment, the emperor realized the danger, but he had no time to escape. A silver-white light flashed through the emperor's neck, and a bloodstain suddenly appeared, shooting blood out. "Ah!" I wanted to scream out loud, but unfortunately Ahu was extremely ruthless and cut open the emperor's vocal cords with a knife, making it impossible for him to shout and only able to make a deep and hoarse voice. Endless fear and flowing blood made the emperor's entire body unable to stop limping, watching as he stabbed his vital points one after another until his life passed away. After chopping the emperor to death with a random knife, who confirmed that no one had taken it off around him. He wore a mask on his face and had no emotional fluctuations in his eyes, as if he had just pinched an ant instead of killing someone. He spat at the body of the emperor on the ground. "Pooh! I offended Brother Mama, I'm really looking for death. P.S. Seeking a wave of flowers, seeking a wave of monthly tickets, seeking a wave of evaluation tickets, endless loop seeking various data."